Good.
Rajesh, you making Samniji co-host, or will somebody unmute Samniji when I say?
Yeah, I will unmute Samniji just a second. Samniji has been unmuted.
Okay.
Link
Please
is on the
switch on the
group.
recording.
I've asked Samniji to unmute herself.
We have started recording as well now.
Yeah. Shall we start the session?
Ashford gets an MBE for his work on critical bills. He says that
2 o'clock we should start.
People are just still entering.
Yeah. There are many which are waiting to enter, so I'm allowing them in, and then we can start in a minute.
You don't need to, Rajesh. You have disabled the waiting room now, so we are fine.
Okay, fantastic. Because it was showing on my list. Good. And GVB Samniji has may I request all the speakers to unmute themselves, please?
Omar Ham.
Omar.
Omharam.
Jai Jinendra, Omharam to all. Wish you all a very happy good afternoon in UK, a good afternoon in African countries, and a good evening in India. We all are equally excited to hear Vimalji's session. Before that, I would like to put some rules for the session. One is all the participants are requested to kindly keep themselves muted. The second point is this presentation and the entire session is being recorded. It will be available on YouTube. You can go to either Auschwitz UK or Jitouk UK link on YouTube. If participants have got any questions, they can raise their hand or they can put their questions in the chat, and the administrators, coordinators will make sure that your questions are picked up, subjected to the availability of time. To kickstart this session, I would request our chairman, Shri Kiranbhai Mehtaji, to kindly come on the screen and start the session. Kiranbhai Mehta.
Jai Jinendra, Jai Shri Krishna. Good afternoon. Thank you, Rajesh ji. A very, very warm welcome to you all. A massive warm welcome and a massive thanks to our speaker, Vimal Shah. It is also fantastic that we have organized this event in collaboration with Navnath and Oshwa. We will start today's event with the blessings of respected Samniji and request them to recite the Navkar mantra. Samniji.
Om Arham. May I request you all, please fold your hands in prayer pose. Have a long rhythmic breathing.
Samniji, you are on mute. We need to unmute yourself, Samniji.
I'll ask them to unmute, but they have to click yes at least.
Yeah, now I think she is unmuted.
Om Arham.
Om Arham.
Fold your hands in prayer pose. Namaskar Mahamantra. Om Reem Namo Arahantanam. Om सिद्धाणम् ॐ ह्रीं नमो आयर्याणम् ॐ ह्रीं नमो उवज्झायाणम् ॐ ह्रीं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम् एषो पञ्चनमोक्कारो सव्वपावपणासनो मङ्गलानं च सव्वेसिं पढमं हवै मङ्गलम् पढमं हवै मङ्गलम् ओम अर्हम नमस्कार महा
Mathan Vandami, Om Haram, and thank you, respected Samniji. Okay, good to see you all again. I will share with you briefly about Jitouk, and then I will request Tushar from Oshwal and Nemish from Namnath to share a couple minutes. Jitouk UK. Jitouk stands for Jain International Trade Organization. I appreciate many will be aware, but I also appreciate there are a few new people on as well. Jitouk commenced about 12 years ago in India and is very well established in India. Internationally, it actually had 11 chapters, which are evolving at different speed and magnitude. Many new chapters are being launched. Recently, Bahrain, Tanzania, Paris, etc. This tremendous work being done by Gautam Bhai, who is Jitouk International Wing Chair. I know Gautam Bhai is also here, so I'll invite him to just say a couple words later. This provides a great platform for connection for those who intend to do business, not only within UK, but also worldwide. Jitouk UK chapter itself was established some 4 years ago and formally established legally a couple years ago. Jitouk has 3 main objectives: education, economic empowerment, and seva. UK has a strong community culture and provides great education and seva opportunities. Jitouk UK's primary focus is economic empowerment and has had 12 events in the last few years. Since COVID-19, we have done a webinar every month on different and relevant topics. It is encouraging to see the numbers increasing every time, which is due to the board members searching for quality speakers and the support from Gautam Bhai. We are also launching Jitouk Business Network, JBN, online networking event for members. Details will follow after today's event. Thank you. Now may I request Tushar Bhai from Auschwitz Association to say a few words.
Jai Jinendra, everybody. Thank you, Kiran Bhai. Thank you to all the Jitouk group today for organizing today's webinar with Vimal Bhai Shah from Nairobi, Kenya. And we look forward to his presentation about achievements by BIDCO in Kenya, East Africa, and the rest of the world. But just to touch on Jitouk. Jitouk is actually a superb organization, fantastic organization, where it links up people from all walks of life, not tied to any community organization such, but links up all businesses, people who have an interest in business, run businesses, or retired from businesses where people can link up, join hands, and learn from each other. So congratulations to Jitouk. Gautam Bhai is here on the line at the moment. So that's where the chapter started in India, and obviously it's then diversified through the rest of the world. And congratulations to Kiran Bhai, as chairman, Manoj Bhai Malu, and all the committee members of Jitouk UK for doing such sterling work. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. That was very short for you. And may I now invite Nemish. Nemish is an executive member for Navnath to say a few words.
Maten Vandami Samniji, Om Ahram, Jai Jinendra, and Jai Shri Krishna. As Kiran Bhai introduced myself, this is Nemish K. Mehta, and I'm a trustee of Uk Association of UK. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome Vimal Bhai Shah on this platform, and would be wonderful to hear how he has flourished in Africa and to inspire young entrepreneurs here to focus on how to conduct businesses in that continent. Navnath is very proud to support Jitouk, and in leading such a wonderful webinar as this, is probably the first that organizations such as Auschwitz, Navnath, Jitouk, and many others that have joined in together. Vimal Bhai, Navnath is a home to many East Africans that have arrived in the UK in the late 60s and 70s, early 70s. You will also be pleased to know that many members have excelled since then in various businesses and professions. It is also great to see today that many Auschwitz and Navnath businesses continue to support Jitouk through various sponsorships. Jitouk have held physical events at our home in Hayes. In the past 6 months since the lockdown, we as Navnath are proud to inform you that we have had many Zoom events that kept our elderly members engaged and connected via Zoom events, such as yoga, meditation, fit classes, financial, entertainment, and religious discourses, as well as pollution by various speakers from around the world on Zoom platform. And only yesterday, it was lovely to hear in the Queen's birthday honors list that our very own Navnathi, Lavina Mehta, was awarded an MBE. Once again, we commend Jitouk for organizing this webinar and look forward to many more in the future, both either virtually or physically. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kiran Bhai. Jai Jinendra.
Thank you, Nemish. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Can I just invite Gautam Bhai to just say a few words. Gautam Bhai is Jain International Wings chairman. He has done tremendous work adding chapters all over virtually, launching chapters virtually and all over the world. And is a rock for us. He supports us all the time, and is a connection between Apex India and UK. Gautam Bhai.
Thank you, Kiran Bhai. Kiran Bhai is one of the best chairmen and very active. And this is the first time that Jitouk always give money, and the first time we got money from Kiran Bhai and all of your association. So thank you so much. About Jitouk International, we are in 23 places now, and we'll be adding around 27. So by maybe another 2 years, we'll be 50. The basic requirement, why we thought this requirement is anybody want to do export, matrimonial, meet, networking. By sitting at your place, you are connected globally. So that is the main purpose, the way we are expanding. And about Jitouk, I'll take 1 more minute. We have 2 excellent programs. One is Sharanam Arogyam, where we have put in 150 crore, 14,000 sadhus are part of that. All there, we take pleasure we take pleasure of serving them. Jitna bhi unka hospital ka kharcha aata hai, to Jitouk take care of that. And then second, we have a JTF, Jitouk Admission Training Foundation. We have developed almost 500 IAS, IRS, and IPS. So we hope to expand Jitouk in UK more let more people who is not in a Jitouk, please join Jitouk. Thank you so much, Kiran bhai. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautamji. Thank you. I'll now hand over to Nemish, our Vice Chair, for the main event. Over to you, Nemish. You muted, Nemish.
Okay. Thank you, Kiran bhai, Vandami, Shamiji. I'm very, very delighted to introduce an amazing business person and a very charismatic personality as well. I met this gentleman for the first time about a year and a half, 2 years ago at the Jitoupreneurs Conference in London. And we had perhaps only a 5 to 10 minute chat, but he still made an amazing impression. And I remember very clearly his passion for the two topics that we engaged in. At the time, I didn't realize he was chairman of a very, very large company. But obviously on the back of this webinar, I got to know a little bit more about him. Really, it's quite amazing what he has achieved. I think it's important to emphasize the scale of his achievement. He was born in 1960 in Kenya, possibly very well known in the Auschwitz community, even in the UK, but certainly the younger Auschwitz community may not be aware of him. But at the age of 25, in 1985, he changed tack for the family business that his father had started. And they went into soap manufacturing. It's now 2020, so that makes it a time scale of 35 years. Bitco Africa, the family business of which our speaker Vimal Bhai Shah is chairman, has a turnover of $500 million US. That's 500 million US dollars in 35 years. And the amazing thing about this to me, and that makes me actually very happy to introduce this speaker, is that it's a product-based business which employs a lot of people and it supports a lot of families in Africa. It's not a tech business as such. It doesn't use machinery or IT or software to generate its revenue. It makes a product, it sells a product, it distributes that product, and it supports a lot of small shopkeepers, a lot of wholesalers, a lot of farmers, and in 18 countries in Africa. So I think when we talk about the capacity of a person to manage people, to lead an organization, and to achieve success on that scale in 35 years, it's not often that we see that. The other country, of course, where we start seeing this, Gautamji, is in India, where the growth of India has been tremendous, and Jitouk is an example of many industrial houses which have done extremely well. The reason why the UK has a strong affinity to Africa is, of course, that most of the Gujarati people, most of the Jain people around the UK have come from East Africa. And so there's a very strong feeling that Africa should do well, and yet we also feel sometimes very difficult to operate in Africa. So one of the things that we obviously want to learn from Vimal Bhai is how did he manage this, and how he carries on managing it so well. In terms of personality, he has been awarded a couple of very important awards from the government of Kenya. One is the First Class Chief of the Order of the Burning Spear. That was in 2011. And the Moran of the Order of the Burning Spear. And for us, that would be like the recent Queen's Honours List, the MBEs and the CBEs. And I think there are numerous business organizations which have given him awards and recognition. Bitco as a company is very well recognized. And so really, rather than go into a lot of these things, I would basically hand over to Vimalji, and let's hear from the man himself on the journey so far, and in particular the opportunities for business between Africa and the UK, with Brexit coming up, with Africa developing, and perhaps the rule of law in Africa beginning to stabilize. So, Vimalji, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Jai Jinendra, everyone. Nemish ji, I think Kiran Bhai. Thank you for making this happen. Gautam ji, always a fantastic supporter internationally. I also want to thank the Jitouk UK organization for hosting me and really for doing a fantastic job. I was there was it last year or the year before for the international event there. It was amazing. Also, thanks to the Auschwitz Association of UK and the Navnath Association for, sponsoring this or hosting this. And of course, the sponsors, Comline and Sigma for sponsoring such an event. It's amazing that we're now in this new post-COVID or co-COVID world, and we can actually connect online really everywhere, which was also possible before this. Are the opportunities, and I think the issue was around, let's talk about the opportunities, the understanding school. And my grandfather came over from India. My great-grandfather also passed away here in Kenya, and we're born, brought up here. I clearly say I was born and brought up here. I educated myself in Kenya, and I'm going to die in Kenya. So I think that's Africa for me. I don't want to leave this place. I wouldn't want to migrate. So having said that, I think there's a lot of old perceptions about Africa. There's a lot of misconceptions about Africa. And there's been a lot of print about Africa too, in terms of the good side and the bad side. And probably I'll talk about that. But also, I've been asked to speak about our journey. For the youngsters who don't know, being brought up in Kenya, educated in Kenya, our story is my father, my brother, and myself, all three together. We put this new consumer goods project together. And it's an amazing startup story, because when we started off, we didn't have any capital. My father was running a company called Bitco Clothing Factory, which was into garments. And being in university at USIU International here in Nairobi, I thought, let's make this happen. And also educated myself in Jamhuri. So if there are any Jamhuri boys, old boys here, I know there are some people who are already online, but it's been an amazing journey in education. I know a lot of people in the UK have roots or have somehow passed through India, come through India and come through East Africa and gone back to the UK. So probably I'm addressing them. But I guess the youngsters wouldn't know of what's happening right now. So I just want to give you that brief and let's talk about it. And of course, I'll be happy to take questions. Of course, this sort of a session would take 3 or 4 hours to actually get into the depths. And I'm going to share some slides with you. But what we could do probably is to make a few different sessions and cut it into the how to later on. Today, I'd like to discuss why Africa, what is Africa, and then of course, give you a perspective, probably with a different lens. And I think the key issue is what lens do you wear? Here in Kenya, we wear a different lens. We don't see risk in the same manner as you would see it in the UK or wherever you are in the world. I think we've got a global crowd. So I'd rather say everybody's put together. But where we see it from, we just see opportunity, and we say where the specks of opportunity, and we see that. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But our own journey, we started off 35 years ago, precisely, with saying, let's go backward into the value chain for cotton. And since my father was into clothing and garments, we thought, let's start looking at going into the cotton farming business and take it right up to the full value chain. And having done that, we did the whole study and looked at the cotton and what you get out of cotton. You get lint and you get seed. And seed cotton you crush and you can get oil, but the lint you can take it and make it into garments. So that was the issue. And looking at the ginning factories and looking at the full value chain. This was when I was in university and my brother was also in university. We actually did the whole feasibility study. Went around giving it out to people and I said, yeah, it looks like a good idea. So initially in 1980, I graduated, went around 1981, went to different banks. We didn't have much capital then. And going to banks and saying, let's look at this, this is a project we'd like to do, would you finance it? And going from bank to bank to bank, first question is, do you have experience? No, we don't have experience in this business. Second thing is, how much capital do you have? Not much. We need to get loans. And the project was pretty large at that time. It was a full value chain of going from farming cotton to ginning, to spinning, weaving, and also crushing the seeds and getting oil out of it. From the oil, you get soap, and from the soap, you get also byproduct as animal feeds. And the whole thing was, this was all a one project. And taking it around, simply put, they said, good project, but no capital, not possible, unless you have 40% equity. Now, 40% equity of a $30-40 million project at that time was not available. It was just not there. So went to IFC, and IFC actually advised us, start small, aim big, but go on that journey. And that's what we did straight away. We went around to friends and family, and one of our banks here, INM, Biashara Bank at that time, which was started by the Shah community, went ahead, got some loans, and started off small. Started off with soap in 1985. 86, we started production with a vision to go backward into the linkages all the time. And it's been 35 years we've been doing that all the time. I can talk a long time about it, but the issue was we started from soaps, then we went into oils in 91. We put up a new oil factory, and then went back into crushing seeds, and then went into seed farming, got contract farming done. And from there, now we have plantations. So we now got a oil palm plantation in Uganda, which is 30,000 acres on an island. We're now increasing another 30,000 acres there on palm oil. So we're planting palm oil for the first time there. In Kenya, we have about 10,000 to 30,000 farmers, depending on the season, farming sunflower, soya beans, and other oilseed crops for us. We guarantee the offtake contracts. And then we process that into finished products. Obviously, we had to do the whole thing of production, manufacturing, branding, selling. I remember the first few days when we brought out a new soap and went to the market to supply and sell it. They said, nobody's asking for your product. So how do we stock it up? So people even refused to stock up. And that time, the Unilever plant here was quite big. And they would say, look, we are all Unilever traders. We've got the East African Industries board, and we're distributors for them. So no room for you. And that's when we started looking at what do we do about this? So my brother and myself, we took up different vans, went around van selling, telling people, stock this product up. We also had people who in the value chain who were looking at garments and stuff like that. We told them, stock some soap, start selling some soap and repurpose yourselves. They said, oh, we've never been in that business. But then the cash cycle is better. One thing about the textile and garment business is that it's a very long gestation period for your cash cycle. So if you put in your goods today, it's about 6 months to 8 months you get your cash back. Whereas in the edible oil and the soaps, it was like 30 days maximum. So your cash cycle is 30 days. That was a good option, and we picked it up. But we learned a lot from that. And I think having done that, we've learned a lot. We've come a long way. And then we went backward into oilseed crushing and plantations. So now we're in 4 countries manufacturing, in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Madagascar. And our growth path is into 16 to 18 countries where we export all our products. Our goal as a company is to grab, grow, and sustain #1 market share in the African markets in whatever we talk about in terms of oils and soaps and hygiene products. So we're in the food consumer business. What we've done recently is gone into other products, and that's a whole range of noodles, drinks, soft drinks, carbonated soft drinks, juices, and hygiene and personal care products. And that journey continues. I think that's going to continue, and we see a lot more scope across Africa. And soon I'll show you why that is. But having said that, I think a lot of people talk about it's difficult to do business in Africa. It's not straightforward. The whole entire thing is about corruption. You can download our code of ethics. We have a clear code of ethics as a company on www.bitcoafrica.com, and we live by that. We live by that, and we have our values very clear, and that's non-negotiable. We don't pay any bribes at all, and we don't have to, because we do it the right way. And my father taught us this when we started our business, because he used to be in the associations and fight for our rights. And thankfully, we learned that art, and right now, we can actually change a lot of things so that we don't have to pay bribes. And I think that's a perception that probably needs to be removed from a lot of people, that it's very difficult. Having said that, it's not an easy ride that you can just get it done. And so tomorrow you come in and you start your business and it gets all gets done. Over the last 35 years, I mean, imagine a time when we started off. We used to go to the office to collect our messages. We used to go for our telexes. We used to go for our, telex is a machine where it has a whole system around it, and that's the only coded message you can send through the banks. Gone are the days. Then came the fax, typewriters are gone, came the fax, and then of course a lot of other things come in. And now you've got a phone, and in that phone you've got your entire office. So things have changed dramatically, and today, thankfully, the digital disruption that's happening is just amazing. So I would say this, that the next 10 years, in my opinion, and I'm saying this post-COVID right now, the next 10 years are probably going to be the best years for Africa. And with that, I just want to share a few of my slides, if I can share my screen. So I think the first question that I have for everyone is, a lot of times we talk about Africa, but it means different things to everyone. Perceptions are different, the reality is different. What does Africa mean for you? And what does it mean to you? And my proposition is that it depends on the lenses you wear. You wear green lenses, you see green. If you wear red, you see red. There's been a lot of narrative about Africa. There's been The Economist, that you probably know, you read this very, very strongly. The hopeless continent at one time. And 10 years later, they say Africa rising, right? And then now it's the new one that says the last frontier. So if you look at the true size of Africa, just to give you a real perspective, a lot of us talk about Africa, but the true size, if you look at it, look at that true size. It's 30.37 million square kilometers. Now, when you compare that with USA is 9.83 million land area, square kilometers. China is 9.6. India is 3.29. Mexico is that. So all that added up, all these countries added up, come to 30.33. All these countries add up to become equal to what Africa is. And that's the true size of Africa. So if I put that on a map and show it to you, that's the map of Africa. You actually fit it in the entire China. You've got the US in there. You've got the Eastern Europe. You've got India. You've got Italy, Germany, France, Britain. And you can see UK here, right? That's the Madagascar island. And Japan too. Now we're talking about a size of this sort. And then we talk about the population. And then it's got 55 countries. So the misconception a lot of people have in America especially is that Africa is one country. It's one continent, so it's one country. And we're going to Africa. But it's 55 countries. And 55 countries are divided into 5 RECs. We call them regional economic communities. And these are like Eastern Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, Western Africa, and North Africa. 5 different regions. Those are economically connected. And therefore, when you look at the population, it's 1.3 billion today. This is now. By 2030, 1.8 billion. By 2050, 2.4 billion. And that's the growth rate. It's not stopping. We also have regional economic communities that are different trade agreements going on. We've got COMESA, we've got EAC, we've got ECOWAS, IGAD, SADC, and all that gives you a different flavor of how to trade in each country. But when we look at the size today, that's the size of Africa all put together. And I'm saying this with a qualifier, this is all countries put together. 2.6 trillion, consumer spending 1.4 trillion, 1.1 billion is the number of Africa's working age by 2040. That's what we see. And again, 50% will be living in cities. So when we look at this graph is important for all of you to see. If you're in Europe, you're in America, you're in Latin America, look at the curve of growth up to 2100. So if you're looking at doing anything in, whether it's business, economy, or whatever, where is the scope? If you look at Asia, Asia is coming down on the curve later on and still not going down, but it's still up there. It's above 4 billion anyway. But look at the growth rate of Africa. And this is what the interesting part is. This means everybody needs food, clothing, shelter, and of course they need the healthcare, the education. And these are realities, the last frontier which we talk about. The underlying trends today are urbanization is real. Cities are getting bigger. Post-COVID, there's a big issue right now going on. Say post-COVID, maybe there'll be less urbanization if the bandwidth is increased right to the rural areas. But that's also happening. Again, the population growth, the expanding middle class. The middle class is growing because we've come from a low base. We've come from a very low base, and there we can only go one way. It's only going to go higher. We've got trading blocks coming up now, and I show you some of the trading blocks that have come through, and there's a new one that's coming up called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which I can talk about, and we're going to start that in January. So from January onwards, we're going to have one big economic zone. Again, reforms. Every country, the political arm, the political pitch around very countries has been reforming. We've reformed in Kenya. We've reformed the complete constitution. We've got a brand new constitution. It's not the same as the British. It's not the same as American. It's a hybrid of American and also British, also some Indian. So it's a democracy. But we've got quicker, and the whole thing is moving at a much faster pace. So things get done quickly. And there's a parliament, there's a judicial arm, and of course there's the executive. With that, the governance that's happening now is going to be much more better, much more faster. And on top of this, the fourth big underlying trend is digitization. With digitization in the mobile economy, this is disrupting a lot of things. In fact, even governments are being disrupted because now trade can be opened up. In fact, education can be opened up. Telehealth, healthcare, a lot more can be opened up. And Kenya, if you remember, all of you remember mobile money, M-Pesa started from Kenya. It was invented in Kenya, and they made airtime into a currency. And that airtime now is a currency globally being used. I think India's just gone onto the system for PayTM and all that, but that's happening. So when we look at the future and look at the going forward, this is from McKinsey, right? They had something called Lions on the Move. The tigers were in the Asian countries. They were called the tigers. We are called the lions, and the lions are on the move. So these are the types of figures that are being talked about that's going to happen in Africa, because as population goes up, demand goes up. As demand goes up, consumption goes up, and that needs to be served. Is it going to continue being served by China, India, Indonesia, or Europe? And Europe had a head start always in Africa. And when you look at 2100, 80% of the people will live in Asia and Africa. Now, the question is, what specs do you wear? Do you see opportunity? Do you see doom? It depends on where we are coming from. The middle class is going to double itself in the next 15 years. Because from the bottom of the pyramid, they're all growing. The GDPs are growing, economics is happening. And believe you me, a lot of the leaders are educated in the Western world or educated similarly to everybody else. And therefore, that's a leveler. It levels all our leadership to the leadership that you have, whether in Europe or in India or wherever else, because now the education barriers are gone. And this is where the leadership is coming from. And they're all talking about not extreme capitalism, not extreme communism. So we come in the middle and say inclusive capitalism. And that's the model that's being used. So inclusive capitalism is not totally socialism. It is a model of inclusive capitalism whereby everybody benefits, it's inclusive, and people also benefit, the economy benefits, and it's a win-win proposition. So cities are going to be growing. In Africa, we see cities becoming very big. By 2025, you see 45% living in cities. That's another opportunity. If you look at the mobile internet traffic, right now we're talking about highest penetration, Nigeria. Look at the percentage, even compared to India, right? Look at South Africa there. And that's the opportunity. So the reach now is going to be far better because of activity. When you look at mobile banking, 100%. In fact, you cannot even write a check more than $10,000. It's not allowed. It just doesn't work. And therefore, you've got to use mobile banking. You can see Kenya on the top there, Nigeria on the top. A lot of people talk about China is taking over Africa. And this is a huge discussion that goes on by a lot of people saying, oh, China is colonizing Africa. The British used to colonize us. We were a British colony. India was colonized too. But now people are talking about economic colonization of Africa. But look at this, where they are spending. Where are they lending? They have a fantastic and a unique model. Their model is come and do projects. I mean, China 1 was about coming in and taking your extractives, taking your minerals, resources, and taking them back into China, producing for the first world. And that was what their competitiveness was about. China 2.0 came about to say, we in China will now come and do infrastructure. And you can see the transport, mining, all that whole construction piece that they've been doing now has been with capital. So they come in and say, we will design a project, build a project, finance it, own it, and then transfer it. And therefore, those countries in Africa didn't have to go to the IMF or anybody, World Bank, and say, let's look for funding. And this is what their model was. Therefore, when they came in, they actually took up projects. And African governments went in and said, fine, why not? And every year we used to have this China-Africa meet where all the presidents from Africa would go there and they'd be hosted by the Chinese and they'd say, fine, give us your wish list. And at one stage in Angola, I remember, they actually said, we are your IMF as China. And they've done that. But it's not been free aid. Whereas developmental aid from the Western world was a big thing, this is also investment. China 3.0 now is different. What they're saying is, we now need to go and not only invest in infrastructure, but now buy companies, buy operating companies, or partner with people. Partner with people and make things happen. Because they've made the logistics competitive, they've made the infrastructure better. Now what they can do is with everything their own companies and run them together. They're not talking about just exporting Chinese products. That's a misnomer. So, and they have a long-term view. Actually, the Chinese have a very long-term view, and that's what I talk about in terms of patient capital. My language I would use is, a planter and a harvester. What Africa needs is planters, not harvesters. If you're a harvester, you're like a PE fund. With due respect to all the PE funds, PE funds come in for a 3 to 5 year period. They come in and say, I want a 25% return per annum, and they want to exit. So they're coming from the back door saying, I want to exit all the time. Whereas what we need in Africa is patient capital. And patient capital can come in. Now just look at what's happening in terms of intra-Africa trade. This area that I'm talking about, Africa, is only doing 17% of intra-African trade. The rest, all this amount, whether it's manufactured product or non-manufactured product, is still being traded with the rest of the world, not Africa. And this is where I'm saying the opportunity lies in a massive way. Whether it is trade, whether it's development, whether it's investments, the whole lot. And I think post-COVID, there's a huge opportunity coming through because a lot of people want to globalize. Be global in your mindset, but localize supply chains. Because we learned that disruption of supply chains could happen. What are people talking about? They're trying to get their fruits, vegetables, their food security into the country and say, fine, we must have this, otherwise we're dependent. I've seen the same thing in Middle East, and they're talking about how do we enhance food security? So this is where the opportunity is massive to say, this is where one could look at what can we do? Now, it's not that Africa everywhere is growing and it's a very rosy story and everything is fine. There are places where it's not growing. And that's one that is South Africa, which was looking at like the best deal on the planet, where South Africa was the best place to go to. And it does show big bubbles because it is a big country. It has got big capital there. Mainly mineral rich, gold, diamonds, the whole mineral part of it made it big, make it rich. And they had sanctions across the whole world because of their ideology. And that helped them to bring up a lot more development. Large corporates came up together and they built up corporatization. Whereas all the rest of Africa is small, fragmented, everybody's small and doing various things. But then again, West Africa grew at 3.2% and Egypt has grown big too. So when you look at it, there's something called ease of doing business. When we say ease of doing business, if I go into a country, I want to know whether I'm up there on top. So you can see Mauritius at the top of ease of doing business. But compare that to the rate of GDP growth. When you talk about high GDP growth and high ease of doing business, that's an attractive country. That's the place you want to go to. So today, if you look at Rwanda, it would seem like it's the best place to go to. And it is, because Rwanda, things will work very, very fast. I don't see a problem there at all, because the leadership today in Rwanda is amazing. The only thing is, it is still a small economy in all its respects. And therefore, you got to look at it with the perspective of what do I do there? Look at Mauritius, Kenya, Rwanda, Egypt, you can see the whole graph. So again, every country is now trying to become far better. You saw India jumping up very, very fast and saying, we don't want to do ease of doing business in a big way. Obviously, they've actually removed the whole ease of doing business. They're revamping the whole thing, but that's going to come in together. So we get a lot of foreign direct investment into Africa. Where does it come from? I think this is important to note that today, if you look at number of projects, USA is number one in projects. However, if you look at the jobs created, China is number one. You can see 137 million, but you can see that the number of projects are lesser. So they've got larger size projects. But when you look at US, France, they've been investing. And UK used to be our biggest investor. Now it's gone down. So I guess investable capital in the UK has probably gone down, or they've got different priorities. We don't know. But look at India. Again, if I'm speaking to the Indians right now, this is opportunity. The question of who's the recipient in Africa, who's getting all this FDI? If you look at it from the top, we can see Egypt was the first one, South Africa was the second, Morocco, Nigeria, and Kenya, Ethiopia. So that's where it's going. And this is where we look at different areas coming together. Now, if you put Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, and South Sudan together, that's called East Africa. That's one REC. And that becomes much bigger if you put them together. The second question is, everybody was doing extractive businesses, and you're going into mining and making it big. Oil was the biggest one for Africa. Nigeria, Angola, South Africa has been oil altogether till now. So the large corporates went in there. But alongside that comes in all the other things that we need, because humans require everything else. So the service industries came up. But you can see the industrial growth too. But the biggest growth, even in East Africa, we see is not manufacturing or extractives, it's in services. And that's what I want to talk about, that this is the exciting space for a lot of you to look at and say, fine, can we repurpose ourselves for services? Now, what does services mean? Services means telecoms, it means everything else that you can do. So even IT, including your legal services, your accounting services, so many more. And if you look at the prominent sectors, most investments have gone into what? Consumer products. And you can see the consumer products, CPR, that's been the biggest avenue where people have put in most money, right? And then of course, telecommunications, that's been big. Real estate, extractives, a lot of that. And we can talk about all this as we go along. But I think the issue that is exciting now, and January 1st, 2022, this becomes live. This is the new Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And this removes physical, technical, and fiscal barriers between countries. The whole African Union is now putting together and saying, remove the barriers of which slows down the goods across countries, slows down the movement of people and capital, and that'll be allowed going forward. So that's the continent of Africa. You see the ones in dark green, they've signed and ratified, which means they are ready on January 1st, 2021 to start looking at free trade. Now you can see Kenya here, East Africa, Uganda, Rwanda signed in, Ethiopia signed in, Nigeria is signed but not ratified. So they will ratify. The question is, this is something that's going to move forward. So approximately 30 countries have already signed up, 28 have ratified, so that's done. And the total target is 54. They went through the threshold. The threshold was if we don't get to 22, we stop everything. They're already at 30 now. And therefore it's a go, right? So that means it's going to happen and it's going to get going. COVID postponed it from June to January next year. So this becomes the new way to look at it. Does it mean that on January 1st next year, it's all free trade? No, there are tariffs being discussed. There are customs organizations talking about it. And we have a model in East Africa. And this is one more thing I want to talk about, that East Africa is the role model for the rest of Africa in how a regional economy works. We in East Africa are not an FTA. We are not a free trade area. We are now a customs territory. That means we have one market. If you export from Kenya to Uganda, that's not an export, that's local market sales. So outside our borders, there's a common external tariff. So anything you bring into us has the same tariff. And therefore we have a common East African customs legislation. And that makes the whole thing much more simpler and easier. So if you ask, okay, what sectors do we look at? What are the sectors that are going to be important in the future? There's quite a few, and these are broad brushes of where else to look at. But there's wholesale, retail, manufacturing, real estate, financial health services. Again, finance and insurance and health services, a lot of this can be done digitally. So therefore, location doesn't matter. To bring it home to the UK, and I wanted to check something on what UK does right now. And this is what UK does, right? So the exports to UK have been mainly from Kenya. And these have been mainly agriculture products, right? But relative size, it's been fourth largest. And we've exported not a lot. It's just $369 million, right? Uganda does that much. And that's the situation of the business right now. What does UK export? UK is exporting various products. Mostly it's cars, machinery, printed matter, and materials. I think the services trade has not been that big because I don't think it's coming through the UK directly, but that's another area. Now the potential, this is the potential. If you see the gaps here, we're talking about the gaps. This is the gap that says UK could do this much trade with us. This is especially only for UK. So the gaps in all these products are these many. And those are the values for gaps. So what is shown in red is the current and blue is the potential. And that's potential there. Again, you can see what UK could export. This could be done going forward, and this is what could be looked at going forward. However, when we look at East Africa's growth has remained quite robust and it's leading, right? So 5% every country has been doing, and therefore I would now look at and say not only East Africa, but Eastern Africa is a big, big one that's coming through. Now, all this is fine. This has been traditional, and I think a lot of countries independently start doing a lot of things together. So there is all that room for 80% of products coming into these countries. So mainly import-based countries, they bring in more their products. You could actually source globally today. The US is trying to get in. China is trying to get in. UK wants to have a bilateral now. And I can tell you right now, we're under discussions for a bilateral agreement with the UK. And this is where you guys can all come together, engage with your UK government on the DFID, and you can talk to your ministry. And that could be done in such a way we actually get a lot more discussions going through. The next disruption, and this is where I picked up from a book, they're talking about the disruption that's coming is the digital disruption. And I think post-COVID, this is going to be very, very vital. And again, the way we do information, the way we do energy, the way we do food, transportation materials is going to take a big change going forward. This is where the opportunity lies. Why? Because a lot of the old, let's call them legacy businesses may not survive, may not be able to repurpose themselves. They may be sitting with what they're doing in the past. This is where new tech, whether you call it agri-tech, new tech, whatever technology can be used, will be used to get all this done. I attended a seminar last week on energy. And did you know that energy now, solar is the cheapest in the world? Solar energy today is the cheapest. The new technology that's coming now will get you solar energy at 1 US cent per kilowatt hour. 1 US cent. If your capital cost, your cost of capital is very high, it goes up slightly, but it goes to 1.2, 1.5. But that's what's happening. And that's the new panels that are coming through. So gone are those days of petroleum, gone are the days of diesel engines, or gone are the days when we used to get a lot of stuff. And we're here on the equator as far as we're concerned in Eastern Africa. And Africa, we get 12 hours of sunshine every single day. Now, solar energy does not need direct sun. It needs light. It's all based on light. As long as there is light, it gets that. So 12 hours is guaranteed and definite. And therefore, energy is going to change. With energy comes the whole change in food, the way food is done. We can do irrigation. We just have to manage water, the sun, the water, and nutrients. And that's what's happening. Precision farming, precision agriculture. This is all scientific farming. It's not like I'll plant something, let's see if it grows, and 6 months later, oh, we didn't get a good harvest. This is programmed. This is planned. And that's available today. You've got Israeli technology. We've got very many other technologies. We can do it. We have flower farms of our own. We have 5 of them right now. And we grow flowers in this precision manner. And it actually exported to Europe every single day by air, and we get what we want. And we can change the varieties as we want. Transportation is going to change. The electric cars are going to come in. Now, have you ever thought of putting up an electric car assembly plant in Africa and then looking at it from a different angle? You would disrupt the entire system of car assembly right now. All those big monies spent in car companies in Germany or in Chicago or whatever would actually have to repurpose themselves. They will need to do that, but they'd have to write off a lot of stuff. Whereas the new tech could be new thing for Africa. So I'm just going to say that a lot of transportation, mobility, materials, 3D printing, if it comes in, the whole material industry comes up. So all I'm trying to say is the disruption is going to be massive. Are we ready for it? Are we going to take advantage? Because a lot of us, even in Kenya or even in East Africa, would be saying, oh, I only need to see what I can see. I can't see more than this. I'll leave it up to this. I've got my own limitations. And we put our own blinkers on our faces to say, I can't see beyond this. But I'm addressing now this to the youth, all the young people out there who could repurpose, who could do things differently, who could actually come out and say, fine, you know what? Let's team up together and then form smart partnerships with people in whether it's India, Asia, Africa, wherever, and say, fine, we're going to go and do this differently. And that's what disruption is about. It's about smart partnerships coming together. And then if you say, oh, I don't know the how to, we could have another seminar to discuss how to do that and how to get together. This is where Jitouk as a platform could be a fantastic option. And this is where people can come together and say, fine, let's create that organization. We have the Visosha community here, we have Jain and Navnath, we have all these communities, but they are only for social welfare. They're only for the welfare or the religious part of it. For trade, we don't do anything. And this is where Jitouk can repurpose itself and say, we are there to serve that need of trade, global trade, come together globally. So I'm going to go to this next one. And this is where I picked this up from a book called Rethinking Humanity. And these guys have talked about that's what's going to happen. They're predicting the fastest, deepest, most consequential technology disruption is going to come through. And costs are going to fall. This has been proven in the solar business right now. The solar business has gone down dramatically. Used to cost $2 million per megawatt. Today it's come down to $700,000, $650,000 per megawatt, right? And this is where the costs are going to go down dramatically. They had made a prediction of the next 50 years and said next 50 years, the prices will drop in a linear fashion. It didn't fall linear, it fell exponentially. And this is where it's going to happen in a big way. Today, the UN headquarters in Nairobi is talking about reducing any wastage, anything that goes to waste. And there's going to be a lot more wastage removal. And that's where the climate change will come in. So I guess with that, I just want to end this in terms of saying Brexit. A lot of you see Brexit as, oh, we're going to be in trouble. We don't know what to do. It's called the VUCA world, as a lot of people call it now. VUCA means volatility. It's volatile. It's going to be uncertain. It's going to be complex. And it's ambiguous. So we don't understand it. And the traditional type of businesses will say, oh, we don't understand it because this is too quick. It's changing so fast. And that's going to be the pace. Believe you me, it's not going to get slower than this. In fact, it might even just increase faster. So to all the young people I'm talking about, look at this. So Brexit is a huge opportunity for you, rather than looking at it and saying, oh, we're in trouble. Look at where the growth is. Maybe you're saying only Britain, only UK. Look at where you're going. And really, these negotiations are happening right now. There are discussions happening of bilaterals and all that stuff. I know that DFID has also got to say, fine, we want to do more investments in Africa, because Africa where the growth is going to be. Not going to colonize, but in a different way. And this is what we're talking about, getting engaged with this. All of you in the UK, I think the UK has got the best of brains in our people. You've got the best of skill sets. You've got expertise in everything. What don't you have? And this is where if you repurpose yourselves, you could start saying, hey, you know what? We can actually engage in this. So I want to leave it there and say, now, looking at all this, what does Africa mean to you? And is it different or is it the same? And then I think, is my time up or should I continue? I could leave it there and I'll take a few questions.
Yeah, I think we perhaps should move on to questions. So okay. That was a fantastic overview. In fact, it was really wide overview as well. I mean, to capture the whole continent and to relate it in terms of the different sectors of development. Clearly, you've really looked at this. I have a specific question to kick off, and then we'll invite questions from other people. BITCO, in my introduction, I said BITCO, the reason it excites me is that it's a very large concern to do with physical product. Right? You're farming, you're growing things, you're distributing things, you're supporting a huge chain of people. In terms of this disruption that you see coming up, how do you see that will impact BITCO? Do you think it will make it more efficient in its core business, or do you see new opportunities for the conglomerate to expand?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. And I think that's something that every one of us who has an existing legacy business needs to ask. And that's the way we put it right now. We have a new mantra. We say transforming the entire organization to have a startup and a founder's mindset. And we all need to have, as a company, a startup and a mindset that is, I'm a founder now, and I want to repurpose my business. And the repurposing is, there is going to be demand. In fact, demand is going to go up. Today, if we are 1.2, 1.3 billion people, that 1.3 is going to be 2.4 billion. Is there going to be demand or not? With food, clothing, shelter will be required. Education, healthcare, transportation will all be required. So our core business does not get affected. However, what will change is the way it is serviced, the way it is given, the competitiveness. And that's the big issue here. What have we been doing in the past? We've been looking at where is it cheaper? Is it cheaper from India or China? Bring that product in and start using it because it was cheaper, right? This is where the new norm of new SEFTA comes together and says, now we're going to put a barrier outside and say from outside, you get it at a 35% duty rate. Locally, 0 rate of duty. You got a market access that says we are a much bigger size now, right? When you look at it now, even West Africa, East Africa, we start trading, intra-Africa trade can just go up. And the minute we remove these barriers, which are all man-made because we had 55 different mindsets, and that's changing now. Now, when you are talking about Brexit, we're actually talking about inclusion and bringing people more and more together. That's where I see opportunity for the UK to say, fine, let's engage with you. If you need to invest, start producing in certain countries. And it may be you need a hedge that you don't start saying, I'll put up one big plant in one country in Africa, and then it'll serve the whole of Africa. Maybe you need 2 or 3, because logistically, it's a big nightmare. So when we looked at our business, all we have to do is repurpose, jump onto the digital bandwagon, and still make our product more and more affordable. Because with COVID, what it taught us is that people are becoming more frugal. They're not consuming a lot more of luxury products, right? I mean, you're all working from home or working from house or working from a device, and your needs have gone down. People used to take 3 meals and now taking 1 meal, 2 meals, and everything's gone frugal. You've gone to essentials. Therefore, we are still in essentials, and we kept running throughout the COVID period. And even today, we're running there. So we see that these products cannot be disrupted in this manner. But the way we look at our business needs to be repurposed to say, serve the customer in a different way, because you need to reach them in a different way altogether. This is another point where youth and women empowerment, we see a huge scope there. Youth and women empowerment becomes a big avenue, so we can actually create many more traders along the way. And therefore, even farming and scientific farming, a lot more partnerships are coming through. Again, it's not going to be I do it alone and I leave you out. I got to be inclusive. We've got to say, fine, carry them together and make inclusive projects. So I call them PPPP, people, public, private partnerships. And this is where the government's role, public sector's role, is to facilitate you and say, fine, go and do this. Then the people come together and the private sector comes together and say, fine, let's do this together and let them also benefit in the value chain. That's a new norm of business. So I hope I answered your question.
No, yeah, it's a good explanation. So the physical part of the business, in a way, can be enhanced through use of the technology and delivery. And I think what you're saying is from the old method of large-scale production to reduce cost, you could maybe actually now use cheaper energy and better digital delivery intelligence to distribute your production model across the country. So then you're not transferring goods all over the place. Picking up on a different point, you mentioned something about African leadership. So in the old days, and the reason that there are so many Jains in the UK is because politically things were unstable. Now, Africa, to my mind, because I was born in Kampala, so I know a little bit, but not as much as you know, there was a tribal element to politics. And what I see now is that the Nigerians in particular in London, that I have a few friends, they are very well educated, they're extremely smart, and they're going back from the UK to Nigeria to actually get engaged with their country again. Now, and you touched on this in that, the Africans are becoming educated, and so government is fundamentally African. And in terms of, integration between the Indian community, the if you like, the host community, because here it's white, over there it's black. How is that working, and how do you see that developing hand in hand?
Excellent question, Nimish. I think that's a very important point to look at. The whole issue around Black Lives Matter and problems around that. The other thing is around this whole thing about fear and insecurity. I think a lot of people went off because they feared. There was a lot of fear. The fear psychosis was around will I be allowed to stay? Will I not be allowed to stay? And I think we had a lot of very strict communal stuff in the past, where it was totally in group. There was no out group, and there was no going out and making friends. Today, if I talk to my son, he's got friends from every tribe, every different type of person. They went to school together. They went to university together. So that whole thing has died down a lot. And if you've been in the UK now, probably 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, no more than that, I think a lot of people went, Idi Amin. In fact, I went to somebody's house in the UK and they said, they pray to Idi Amin every day and say, thank God you threw us out. Because that's why we are now in the UK. We are much more better settled. I have no doubt about that, and I wouldn't underrate that at all. I think the people in the UK have done fantastic. You've done so well, no doubt about it. But looking at it, you are now faced with what we were faced with when we were in Uganda or Kenya or in the past. And this worry was, what next? Who's going to be our next leader? What government? We used to go through this in Africa all the time, because you could have a coup tomorrow. You could have a military takeover. And that's the story of Africa. Again, let me tell you, a lot of the local people didn't do that. That was instigated either by the British or the French or the neo-colonialists from US, and say, fine, infiltrate them and change, right? And they ran this like a puppet.
Right.
And there was a lot of puppet governments. Today, it's changed. That's why I'm saying the leaders have changed to say the ideology, the aspirations are the same. What your aspirations in sitting in London or sitting in Nairobi are the same for an African, for an Indian, for a Jain, whatever. They don't have a difference there. They have the same education. They have access to it. They have access to capital. And therefore, that's a big game changer. It's not just the haves and the have-nots. Now it's also about the want-nots, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some questions coming through. One of them is, what percentage of people are purchasing online products in Africa? Is that because, during COVID, that was the big success sector. In Africa, how is that looking?
So that was a small thing before, but there was a lot of digital readiness. There was a lot of people with online stores, different platforms you could buy from. And now it's all gone digital. A lot of that has gone digital, right? All our payments. In fact, there are establishments now, even restaurants, who don't accept any cash. It's got to be through a phone. It's digital payments. So digital payment is seriously big time everywhere. Mobile banking is a big thing. Banks used to do 60% cash. They're now doing 60% digital. It's just reversed. They're closing down branches. They're not slowing down the business, but closing down branches because you don't need branches. So digital is in. Question mark is, will it be a marketplace that really functions well? Because there are two things about it, and that's the new opportunity. The marketplace needs trust, and that trust levels to say, somebody's opened up a new site. Do you just buy and pay, or do you get the delivery? Because last mile delivery has been a big issue, and that's another area for logistics. In fact, everybody in Africa today is looking at, how do I do last mile logistics? How do I get my transportation sorted out? And because if digitally I've sold something, I need to get that product, because otherwise I'll have a bad customer. So that's a huge opportunity for logistics. Now that's being again changed because Uber has come in. And if you look at Uber and the bodas, we call them the motorbike delivery boys. It's a motorbike sitting for a customer to say, I'm a taxi. They're now doing goods delivery through the same apps. Okay. There are a lot of people who've gone digital in apps. So digital awareness, first of all. Number two, because of people not being able to move around, they've actually gone safer.
Right.
So it is going to take a big, big plus. The only thing is the cost of our internet is still not as cheap as it should be. Okay. And that's a big hindrance. So they still buy bundles. In fact, our biggest company now is Safaricom, which is our mobile company, right? They've even gone away from phone calls. It's more of data. So it's all about bandwidth. We have enough bandwidth, we have enough cables across, so there's no shortage of that.
Yeah, that's following the American and the European model, right? Where the voice call is nothing, it's the data that's the important thing now. Yeah. Okay, so another good question is, you keep talking about Africa rather than East Africa or Kenya. So is that a mindset change for all Africa? Is the whole of Africa now beginning to see itself as one market?
So this is an important point, right? I am born and brought up in Kenya. I am an East African. We've invested in East Africa. We're looking at various countries. But when you look at the regions, all the regions together, talk about Eastern Africa, talk about West Africa, talk about North, talk about South, and talk about Central, right? South Africa was a different kettle of fish. South Africa used to be like America, right? But then they had the sanctions, they were really good. After that, when they opened the sanctions, they couldn't come and trade. A lot of South African companies went out with a lot of capital and tried to trade all over Africa. They didn't succeed very well because they had a South African mindset, which was different. And that's what is important to say. We need a different mindset. Number two, East Africa is the biggest opportunity right now for a lot of things. Why? Because we are very, very congruent with your British style. We speak English, right? Everybody would speak English. Our language in Swahili, the script is in English. If you say Jambo, it's Jambo, it's no other thing. So easy to learn. So compatibility with India. And India, we just united with the Indian Ocean, right? On the other side of Indian Ocean is India. We've got a lot of reciprocity and a lot of good things there. So I could talk about East Africa, but today's topic was about Africa, and therefore I left it at Africa. But we can zero in and say which region. I'm sure West Africa, I'm not an authority on West Africa, but I've seen West Africa from a distance. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. But the only problem is the legitimacy of a lot of business is still, untaxed business, informal business, a lot of that. And East Africa has moved beyond that to go online and become very, very compatible. All our tax stuff now is done online on computers. And TCS from India, the Tata Consulting Services did some fantastic thing. Everything is online, real-time online. So it's all digital now. Right. So that's why I'm saying the speed in West Africa has not been that much. And therefore we see that slowing down.
Okay, Vimal Bhai, we need to just give you time to have a drink and a pause because there's some questions. But so in the meantime, if we can take a few minutes to just talk about the sponsors. And then I specifically wanted to come back to you, and there was a question from somebody else about safety in some of perhaps the West African countries and the North African or Northeast African. And I guess she's talking about personal safety. The other thing that's very interesting is that if you go digital, is the economy becoming a white economy rather than a black economy in the sense of money, right? Not otherwise.
Yes.
Because in India, clearly that demonetization and the drive to digital suddenly generated lots of black money disappearing. It's coming back, I understand, but so we'll come back to those two questions in a minute. Let's talk to the sponsors. So we're going to put their slide up for a second.
Thank you, Namish. Thank you very much.
Kiran Bhai, go.
Yeah, as soon as I can get the slide on. This kind of events and Jitouk cannot perform without any finances. I'd like to really acknowledge our platinum sponsor, Comline. Divyesh Kamdar has been a patron. He's supported all the way through from day dot. He's always there for any requirement. I just wanted to say massive thank you on behalf of Jitouk for being our platinum sponsor. He is our sponsor for 3 years. So Divyesh, thank you so much. And we also, for the 2 webinar sessions that we recently done, I requested Bharat Bhai and immediately said yes. We did Deepak Jain last week and last month, and this time with Vimal Shah. Bharat Bhai of Sigma, he sponsored the webinars. So again, Bharat Bhai, a massive thank you. If I may, I'll just ask if Bharat Bhai could do 2 things for me. Just one, if we can put him on spotlight to just say a few words. And also, you will see an CBE. We've had 5 Jains who have been in the honors list. And as a CBE himself, it would be so good for him to acknowledge them on behalf of Jitouk, Oshwal, Navnath, the whole Jain community. It's such a pride to have Jains on the Queen's honors list. And as a recipient himself, who better? Bharat Bhai, over to you.
Bharat Bhai, you're on mute. Okay, I'll try to unmute you.
Willingness to work hard is third thing.
I'm okay.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Ankit was never taken
I think I think many people have been muted. Bharat, just a second. There is a lot of background noise.
Relationship based.
Can you mute everybody and then
Somebody
unmute
turns
Bharat?
out very good, like you turned out very good. Somebody does not.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Bharat
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Dear Kiran Bhai, Rajesh Bhai, Gautam Bhai, and all Jitouk executives on this webinar, all Navnath and JVB, thank you for allowing us to be part of this great event. Hi, Vimal. It was a pleasure hearing from you this very inspirational talk. Our family is also from Nairobi, and we have a lot of ties with Nairobi and Thika, where you're based as well. My brother Manish and I have met you personally at the Commonwealth and Foreign Office a few years ago when you came with a trade delegation from Kenya and you actually spoke. Jitouk is an amazing organization that has brought many motivational and inspirational speakers like you to not only UK, but many people all over the world. My sincere request to all the guests who are today attending this webinar to watch the Jitouk website for many of these very interesting lectures, and they are really interesting. I'm requesting also participants on this event who are not yet Jitouk members to become Jitouk members, because you can take not only advantage of such webinars, but a lot of international networking. Like Kiran said, I'm very pleased to share the names of the 5 giants who were named yesterday in the Queen's birthday honor list this year. They are Chandni Sechpal Shah, Professor Nilay Shah, Anand Bhai Megji Petrat Shah, who many people must know, Jayantilal Shah, and Lavina Mehta, who already Nimesh had mentioned earlier. All the 5 recipients, my congratulations and well done. Thank you very much, Kiran. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bharat Bhai. And thank you very much for that. And thank you for sharing the names as well for that. And congratulations to everyone. We'll back into the swing of our event today. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Kiran Bhai. Bharat Bhai especially. And I'm hoping that Jitouk can build on this particular aspect of business. And I think Vimal Bhai may want to touch on that later on. Is that Comline, Sigma, and I think Bitco all have a second generation, and the second generation is entering their business. In fact, Bharat Bhai, I think, has given over leadership to his second generation. I'm not sure what the leash is like, Bharat Bhai, but certainly I think Sigma is getting a lot of energy from its second generation. Comline is exactly doing the same thing. So Vimal Bhai, perhaps we can pick that one up as well, because to run a large business, you need to have a team, and sometimes family is the best team. But it brings its own difficulties, and so that's something to talk about. But if we can go back just to those particular questions that we mentioned before, the balance between corruption and tax, white money, black money, Africa particularly. And also, I think just one of the things you mentioned is the growth. There will be a fight for resources, and Africa is not rich in water in some parts, and it's rich in some parts. So the question there is going to be, how do you see that panning out? And then I think to wrap up, what I would like to do is to invite you to perhaps talk about concrete ways that people can engage with you or with Africa. And perhaps we can at some point think about a second session which is much more detailed on specifics on how to engage and the roots of engagement.
Great. Great. I think thanks, Nimish. I think we could do that. Bharat, nice meeting you again. It's lovely. Thank you for sponsoring. But I think you can see what Kenyans can do even in the UK, right? To answer your question, I think there are two things about corruption. One is the perception and one is the reality. Everybody will tell you everything is corrupt in the world. I would say the UK Parliament is very, very corrupt. I would say Trump is corrupt. I would say, the US is very, very corrupt because they do various things differently. The question is, what is our definition of corruption? One definition is where people take speed money for, I committed an offense and therefore I give a bribe and therefore I get off it, right? Same thing in India, right? So the point is, what is corruption to you? Speed money, is it corruption? Or is it trying to get it fast so that I don't want to have a hassle? I paid something and I got off. No more tickets, so I'm off. Second thing is corruption, which is theft by servant. Now, theft by servant is the biggest issue in Africa, right? But it's the same thing in the US. It's the same thing in what happened to the $1 trillion that they gave in the US as a stimulus package. I don't know if you know that, but a lot of it went to private pockets. Now, is that corruption or no? It's called different, right? When it's Africa, it's called corruption. When it's in the US, it's called, oh yeah, let's see what happened. My point is the perception. Now, if you said, I will restrain myself, I will not do that, I will not give a bribe, I will face the music, and I will not commit the offense. If you don't commit the offense, if you don't want to do it, say, fine, let me find a shortcut. You will not be able to have a problem. Because then the people who are looking for that extortion or corruption will know that, hey, these guys don't pay. They'll say you're conjuice, right? So basically, they don't ask for it. Whereas we feel that, oh, if I give something here and there, I've got to give it out. Let it be known. Let it be broadcast. Let everybody else know. Start a movement. We have actually started a movement here. We have code of ethics for every company now. And we put that out in the private sector. And I'm part of that chairman associations. Let's make sure nobody corrupts anybody. And if you get corrupted, if you get asked, point it out. Now that's where the people need to have guts to say, fine, this is what I'm going to do. And this is where it takes some time at times. Because a lot of times is the profit motive that's pushing you and say, let me get some profit, faido su. I think the important thing here is we got to look at it from a longer term perspective to say, I'm here to make a difference and I'm not going to do this. Because what are you going to leave for your children? The people who corrupt people, for their children, are they going to do the same thing? Or they're going to tell their children, you know what, might as well go off to UK and live a good life there, right? The second question is UK devoid of corruption? So perception versus reality is a different level. But in Kenya today, it's changed dramatically. Even in Uganda where we operate, we got a big investment in Uganda. We haven't paid a single bribe and we don't do that. Question is, they need to know, you need to communicate your values, they need to communicate who you are and communicate clearly that we don't pay and we'll face the music. So that's important, right? So I think I've answered that issue of corruption. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it does exist, people ask for it, but depends how you attack it and how you tackle it. Second thing on water, sorry.
No, I'm saying what you're saying is you have to have integrity with your principles and you have to project them. So you don't have to be shy about them. You have to project them very strongly so that, the request is just not coming in.
Exactly. So that's where you stop it. And that's why then they know what your identity is. You don't do that, right? Number two, your principles. If we said we do ahimsa, anekantvad, and, parigraha, the point is, what is anekantvad? It's everybody has a point of view. There is no right or wrong, and we use it. Now, if you say ahimsa, I follow ahimsa, and you say should be no ahimsa in the world, there is hinsa happening, but you don't do it. That's all. That's the difference. So I hope you get that, because otherwise the perception is like Africa, not a good area. You got to give bribe. Don't give it. Okay. Number two, associations are important. That's where people need to pool their skill sets, pool their resources together and say, fine, form an association of like-minded people to say, we will not do this. right? Again, Jitouk could help in this and say, fine, Jitouk, code of ethics, this is what the code of ethics is. We will not do anything wrong. And then when you go to presidents, when you go to countries, you actually tell them, this is what we stand for. And these are the Jain principles. You can actually bring them out and say, this is what we stand for. So I mean, this saying is a huge amount of, whether we call it abstinence or whatever, I'm going to, stay away from it. I'm not going to do it. Water is a big subject you talked about. So I chair the Water 2030, Kenya 2030 Water Board with the Minister for Water. And there is no shortage of water. There is no shortage of water in the world. The oceans are full of water. What is the problem is potable water to where we require it. Having potable water to where it's required, that's the biggest problem, right? And therefore, that's a big task for governments to start looking at water availability to everyone, right? Number one. Number two, that's where the whole new opportunity space comes in. You can desalinate a lot of water from the sea, from the oceans. You can use solar power, and therefore, all that is becoming opportunity now. And this is where the UN is trying to say it's got to be private sector engaging in it. This is where I talk about the PPPP, people, public, private sector partnerships. The government doesn't have the funding or the ability or the skill set to do those projects, and they will say, fine, I will concession it out. I think last week you must have seen a Kenyan president was in France. They have actually concessioned out a road for 1.3 billion euros. The private company from France is going to build, own, operate, and transfer the road, but they'll charge a toll for 25, 30 years. That's allowed. Now, you've got to get such people together and say, fine, let's start doing this. Those opportunities exist. The reason is governments have gone to their level of borrowing. They can't borrow more. So therefore, they're talking about giving out to concession people, right? So even water is a huge opportunity for concession. Water can bring in irrigation, can bring in food, manufacturing, the whole lot, including water as a business. It's still possible, right? So I think the issue is there's a lot of water. The question is it's not available to the people. And that brings about an issue of how do you harness water? So conserve, reduce, reuse. There's a lot more possible there. Lastly, I think on your question of how to look at the how-tos, we need to define what are we looking at, why are we doing it, and then the how-tos can be addressed very simply. That's where we network with people and connect people and also get some connections going to say, this is what's required, get it done in this manner. So I think that we can form another group or we can talk about it later on. But there's some question from Surendra Shah, I see, raise hand. Surendra bhai?
Would you like to go with that?
Let him ask the question.
Arvind bhai, can we get Surendra bhai to ask the question, please?
Or is muted?
Yeah, I think because of the number of participants, I'm not sure we can find.
Maybe you can type his question in.
Yeah. Okay.
So on the how to, I think, should I answer that question now?
I think.
Do you want to leave it for later?
No, go for it.
So first and foremost, my view is this, and this is my particular view. I think that it's high time now people stop becoming silos. We all become silos to say, I should do this on my own, and I got to do it because I don't have the wherewithal. Then a lot of people start saying, what do I have as resources? My resources are X amount. If it's here, you say, I buy a property, I buy another property, I keep on paying mortgages, I buy a few more properties, that's my investment. Then you say 10% I put in the stock market, 10% here. That could be possible to look at in terms of pooling together. Skill sets, people who are passionate to say, let's look at it. Form a group, then start looking at what are the areas available. What does it require? Does it require capital? Does it require people? Does it require time? Or does it require networking? And with that, India, UK, Kenya, whatever, we can actually start looking and saying, fine, who is there? We've got so many people, even in Kenya, who could be important to say, let me come into that group. So create those global forums, even if they are online, and then start discussing the problem, what you want to do, and get it done. Because I think this is where the repurposing needs to happen very, very simply. We cannot work in the same manner, because if we work in the same manner as we worked for the last 10, 20, 30 years, what are we going to get? The same results. I think this is where the whole thing about Brexit, thing about African trade, it's an opportunity. Now, some people say, why should I go? And I'm not saying everybody should go. There are those who will feel I need to go. And those will feel I don't want to go. It depends on where you are in life.
Yeah.
If you're content, you're saying, I have no problems, I'm in my comfort zone. And to the young, I say, they're at sunrise. The people like me at 60 are at sunset. So at sunset, the mood is different. At sunrise, the mood is different. So to the guys who are at sunrise and you want to do things, because adventurous stuff, things are going to happen in Africa. It's not going to be, it's a lot of raw material. However, if you said, I've asked this question to some people in the US, give me your 2030 vision. And they said, what 2030? Even 2025, I don't know what I'm going to do. My point is, let's ask all our people right now, what's your vision 2020? What's your vision 2030? Not 2020, but 2030. Create it. If you don't have one, create one and say, what excitement are you going to bring in? And one thing for sure, uncertainty is not going to go away.
That's part of life.
It's going to stay with us. It's all about how much faster I can run it. And this is what I say, if there was a tsunami coming right now, if there's a tsunami coming, I have two choices. Either I do nothing and I get drowned, or I surf the tsunami and I really get to my destination. The choice is yours.
So, thank you very much, Bimal.
My question is online.
Yeah. So quite a lot of people have asked very specific questions to do with trade. Do you think offline that we can, is there some channel that we can pass them down?
No, the cause of Africa's cause.
Sorry.
Nemish need to unmute.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
So the first is just because we need to try and wrap up, but there are a lot of very concrete and specific questions asking for contacts or looking to create some kind of partnership because they have a clear product line in mind. Is there some channel that we can pass this down into after this event, Bimal?
Yeah, let's create one. Let's create one with Jitouk and put it together. And right now, keep it available to everyone who wants to come into that group and have something we call needs. Somebody's got a need, and then somebody gives you a lead and say, put a lead together. That you could do straight away.
So Jitouk has a, I think, a Kenyan chapter, doesn't it? Bharat Bhai and Nilesh Bhai are in there. What we'll do perhaps is just link this through with them and then see whether we can continue that dialogue.
Yeah, I'm just saying you could do that, or you could create a new one and say, fine, here's a need or lead from the UK, and you could call it Jitouk UK. Do it on Telegram. You can get 1,000 people on. There's no problem.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Tools are available, but I think the key issue is you get some ground rules for that. If somebody posts a need, you say need. If somebody posts a lead, you say lead, and therefore you give the contact and connect people together. That's all.
Okay, I think that's great. I think we'll try and do that and sort.
There's a question online. The question online, somebody asking me, is Africa also moving towards eco-friendly or sustainable solutions like the West? I can answer it much faster right now. Africa is moving much more faster than the West into that area. Sustainability is in. The UNEP World Headquarters are 3 minutes from here, where I'm staying right now in Nairobi. And they're all looking at plastic waste, this waste, that waste, energy, solar, conservation. However, we are not the biggest polluters. But still, we in Africa are moving much more faster. The biggest polluters are in the States.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think in many ways, Europe and US have taken a lot more from the world as well. I think to wrap up, perhaps we can just look at this one. Please ask Bimal how he's dealing with succession or has dealt with succession. Is that something we want to go into now?
Yeah, we can. Look, I don't have a problem with that because I think this comes into everybody's place. Every single person, whether it's a business or it's a family or whatever, succession is a big issue, right? Yeah. And a lot of times, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, my father's also here. I mean, he's listening to this. It was like, I am the grandmaster. I'll run it. It's got to be my way or the highway. And the children were told, you know what? You're still young. You don't do this, da-da-da. And they didn't have the education. They actually said learning by doing. If they were told to go and educate themselves, they said, forget it, just join the business, start working, and that's it, learning by doing. It's changed now. Now we're giving them basic education, we're giving them the best of education, and with that, they're able and capable. The only question is, we've got to learn how to pass the baton. If you know how to run the relays that are run here by 4x40, and Kenyans are the best marathoners and the best baton people right now. So they know how to pass the baton. You have the baton there, and the other person then holds the baton and then takes it over. The key question of succession is, when do I hold the baton out? When does the other person hold it? And I can't throw it. I've got to take them to hold it. And then after holding it, when do I let go? The biggest problem people are having is they keep on holding it and they don't want to let go. So that's the issue of succession. And we can have a full session on succession because everybody faces it. Do I part with this? Do I not part with it? And therefore, we also have the same thing here. We have succession issues. We've planned it out. Today, my father is in the business. I'm in the business. My son is not yet there, but he's just graduated. My nephew is in the business. We're 3 generations in the same business. Yeah, we're family owned, but professionally run. It's all professionally run. Then we've got systems in place. We've got SAP, IT, fully real-time online. Now it's all digital, right? So with that, you actually remove human discretion. So with that, you've got to make sure that your succession coming in needs to be groomed, trained, and shown the detailed how-tos. And you don't let your ethos go away. Your company culture must not go away. The values must not go away. Those are non-negotiable. So a lot of times, the cultures that people have set up in the past need to change too. Sometimes if they're old school, they didn't work in the past, we've got to repurpose ourselves. That's why we're talking now about startup and founders mentality. Unless we oldies, and I say old people, start changing for the youngsters, they're not going to be interested to come. So I can see one more thing happening here with a lot of our young people that I talk to, and I mentor quite a few. They want to come back to Kenya. But the parents are saying, don't come back. Why? You educated there, you go find a job there. Where are the jobs in the UK? People are being furloughed left, right, and center. And this is where the excitement is in Africa. So I would invite those guys. But apart from that, reverse migration coming back to Africa is what I'm looking at. Saying, why not? You could actually Brexit yourselves and come into Africa. And Africa is inviting for investors, for people to work in. No issues. Come in with skill sets, open for business. So that's opportunity again. So when we define the word opportunity, there's a lot that could be done, provided we open our mindsets and say, fine, I don't want to stay in my cocoon or my silo. I want to work with people together. This is where Jitouk could come together and say, fine, Jitouk globally, worldwide, network, get the youngsters together and really make them a big difference. A lot of the oldies can also be put together to say, learn from who can do it and who can't do it, because they need to be told. The youngsters can't tell them.
Yeah. I think that is a particular theme that we've picked up over the last 2 or 3 years in the UK. Succession is really important and it's causing a lot of stress. And I think we should tackle it in the future as a specific topic and theme in itself. Vimal, thank you very, very much. You can see the comments yourself, but without any exception, it's been fantastically well received. The one I liked the best was your explanation with the baton. Very on the theory of succession. Fantastic seminar, best Jitouk seminar. You are fabulous. That's you, Vimal. Thank you, Vimal, for saying it as it is. And you also need to say women are now entrepreneurs too, which I think you actually did touch on. And
let me touch on that for 1 minute. I think our biggest unused, untapped resource is women. Untapped, untouched. And I think this is where we need to pass them the baton too and really empower them to start doing things differently, right? And that is an amazing part because they've also got the education. They've got whatever is required. Why do we start becoming male chauvinist? We need to put that and repurpose them to say, fine, they can do a lot. Because if you put women together, I'm sure they're going to do amazing stuff. And I've seen them happen. It's happened in India. It's happening here. They can do a lot of good stuff. However, they need to be guided in the right direction to say, fine, here are the opportunities, get things moving. They could also trade. They could do things. And you know what is happening today? Work from home has shown that it's not a man or a woman. Anybody can do it from working from home.
I was just smiling because I would hesitate to tell my wife that I can show you the way. I think more likely she will say, you do what I tell you, it'll be fine.
Good advisors, good advisory.
She always tells me that, let the man think he's the head of the family, but the woman is the spine, and the spine turns the head whichever way it wants.
And we need their permission to say that we are the leaders. If they don't give us the permission, we're not the leaders.
Very well done.
We are blessed.
They are the reason we are still surviving.
Well, absolutely true. So a few more comments. Well, one of them is would love to have part 2. So we'll speak and see if we can manage a part 2 when you have time. Very well said, sir. Very inciting and well-researched presentation. In fact, many people asked for your slides, the presentation on Africa. It really was.
You shared it. It's not mine.
Okay. It was very comprehensive. It was excellent. Women power is impacting positively big time in India. That's a very interesting one. So yeah, absolutely. So I think we need to wrap up. Thank you very much. And having been born in Kampala, I still hanker for coming back to that weather and that greenery and the friendliness of people generally. UK is not the same level.
Come back. You can actually come back for the safari, come back for the wildlife. We have the best parks in the world, right? And the game is free, the environment is good. Uganda, come and visit us on our island. We have a whole island there. We've got a guest house. Come and stay there. Have a look at the plantation.
Well, if it's an invitation to the Jitouk community, perhaps we'll organize something as an international trade thing one day.
Come and see. I think you need to come and see, come and feel, and then you get the gist of it. Otherwise, we go to a seminar, we listen, we say, yeah, okay, fine, next.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So let's wrap up. Would you like to say some last few words just for the future message to everybody generally?
I think I just want to say one last thing. We've all come to where we are today. We cannot change what we have become today. We cannot change anything till this minute. But from now on, where we are going from here, we could change a lot. And I think it's about every single person saying, I am the candle and I will be lit. Once I am lit, I can light infinite number of candles. And that's what I'm trying to ask you. Be the candle that can really light up many more and change things. Because if we still dwell on the past, this happened, that happened, I've got this grudge, I have this problem, we had a Brexit, I didn't vote for it. Forget it. What's happened has happened. We've got to look at it with a clear mind to say, where are we going from now and where are the opportunities? Not now, for the next 10 years, 20 years. In fact, if you go and look at the program for Africa 2063, go and Google Africa 2063. It's a huge program that they have to say Africa will be united in 2063. Now, 2020 to 2063, we're talking about 43 years, right? There's going to be huge transformations, but that's the AU. And now they're seeing it with ACFTA coming in, they see that exponentially happening. So the world is going to move fast. We've got to repurpose and move on fast. And really, if we can network together, and I say this even to our communities, the Oswals, the Jain, the Navnats, we've become too many silos for too long. We need to cut off the silos and say, fine, for trade, we bring it out and say, become together. Because if I am the Oswal, I'm a Shah, I can tell you that, many Shahs also here. We are about 80,000 people globally, all over the world. We call ourselves Halari Visa Oswals. I don't know, Navnath, how many you are, but globally, you just say what a number. When you look at that and you can become part of a 6 million people community of Jains coming together on the Jitouk, that's amazing. The networking, the power, the whole lot. And we've got some glue that brings us together. Why not come together? So I'm just saying, none of our communities or the societies we've created are going to do anything about trade or business or educating people on economics. And the economic pillar pulls up the social pillar.
Absolutely.
Always. If the economic pillar is not doing well, your social pillar will not do well. So let's make sure the economic pillar is done well. We haven't done much on the political pillar because we all stay out of politics. And I know some people are into politics in some places now, but I'm seeing a lot more coming into the UK. But economic pillar is something that Jitouk can really repurpose and say, make that the agenda. Don't try and become a social organization and overpower others. Really. And I would encourage everybody en masse to join into Jitouk and become members. Make it much more stronger. Globally, we can do much more. Thank you, Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra Vimalbhai. Said it extremely well there. So thank you very much for your time today. And I think the Jitouk vision is not to engage in the social side that the communities are working in, but to try and develop trade across everybody. So I think that perfectly sums up what we were trying to do. So now if I can ask Sulab to talk about the next Jitouk events on that basis. Sulab, are you there? Sulab, while we're waiting for Sulab, Manojji, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Manojji, would you like to give a vote of thanks to everybody and then we can talk about the next event? I don't seem to have that. So, Rajeshji,
Yeah, he's here.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. On behalf of Jitouk UK, I offer my heartfelt gratitude to Bimal Bhai for giving a great insight into opportunities potentially there in Africa. Also giving a lot of hope and optimism when the chips seem to be on the downside here in the United Kingdom. Thank you for making that call for us to come out of having this island mentality. Everything is British is great. Yes, it was. But when we sit on our past laurels, we get nowhere. And, thank you for giving us that chance to reflect. The second task was, to say, how wonderful as an organization Jitouk could be, but it can only be wonderful with the support of individuals who are here in this audience today and speakers like yourself. And in terms of having a non-judgmental attitude and willingness to learn. And here I'll share a very small anecdote, if I may. In your seminar, which you took, a webinar you took for Indian colleagues a few weeks ago, you mentioned the Kenyans are very good in paying. Somebody asked a question. And I can tell you, already that has benefited me in our small healthcare business in the UK in understanding how African minds work, how African behavior works. So, black lives, black numbers in the UK, they're enormous. And many people who are in the business here, you need to look at that how you can open up opportunities for yourself, even in the UK market with the black people around here. We become very quickly judgmental about them. And I can tell you, if you open up, probably there are some of the best paying patients if you're in healthcare profession, for example. And particularly I'm hinting towards my dentist colleagues here, many of who are in private practice. And very finally, I cannot thank, on behalf of all the audience that, you can see all the comments. I don't need to call it a successful seminar. The success is when we know that we have got half dozen new businesses, starting relationships starting in Africa. And to facilitate that, I'm sure Jitouk UK will do what best it can. In fact, I'll suggest the next seminar should be something very simple. That is the immigration rules, the tax structure, some very basic things about life in Kenya, for example, a small starting point. And because there are many people who have had, contact with Africa in the past, but there are equally many who didn't. So, considering their requirements. And finally, absolutely wonderful for so many of you from different parts of the world to be here. And very grateful, very overjoyed, but a lot of follow-up tasks to do, which we will not, lose sight of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sulab, are you back on? Thank you, Manojji. That was excellent.
I think Sulab is not there, Nimish Bhai.
Okay,
He's
so
not there.
would you like to talk about the members meet and the AGM?
Yeah, the next, Girish, can you share the slide for the next event? Do you have that slide?
No.
No?
1 second.
Okay, can I share my screen then?
1 second. Host, do you have the slides?
Yeah, I have got the slide. So I have shared my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Nimish, you can talk about the next event coming up.
So the next event we have is on Sunday, the 8th of November. We're calling it the Diwali networking event. It's specifically for Jitouk members. And really it's a chance for Jitouk members to do a speed introduction to their own businesses. And then from that, we try and break out into rooms and talk about opportunities and difficulties we have so that we can help each other and try and expand that networking system. Okay, so that is next on Sunday, the 8th of November, for Jitouk members only, not open to the public, that particular one. So if you want to take part, please join Jitouk and get a proper introduction to other Jain businesses. We also have coming up our AGM. So if you're interested in taking part in Jitouk, if you're interested to understand what we've achieved so far and what we plan to do in the future, please come to the AGM. It's going to be an online virtual AGM again, 29th of November, I believe, but we will be sending that out a little further on. So, Kiran Bhai, if you would you like to wrap up? I think you wanted to just...
Yeah, can do. But just before I do, because of membership, if Rajesh wants to, because the Vimal's encouragement has been so amazing, and I know I will end up with emails and calls. And can you just share for a quick 1 minute what the membership is, Rajesh?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to... Kiran Bhai, sorry, my father wants to say hello. Hi.
Yeah, of course. Pranam.
There he is. Nice to see you. Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
You. Nice to see you again. તમને જોયા હતા આપણે લંડનમાં એવોર્ડ ટાણે.
Yes,
yeah, તમે 3 generation ઉપર હતા સ્ટેજ ઉપર. પ્રણામ.
Yeah. The name Bitco comes from his name. His name is BD Shah, so the Bitco name comes from BD company. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Vimal, must seminar thai.
Thank you. That's good.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah, so in terms of membership, we have got various. Yeah, I'll just say a few words regarding the membership. In terms of membership, we have got various options. We can imagine many people may not be really very having a very good idea in terms of what Jitouk is doing. So we start the membership from annual membership, which is very, very economically priced. Then we move on to patrons, which is a life membership. And then we have chief patrons, which is kind of the trustees and custodians of this organization. So in case anybody is keen, or if you have any query, please feel free to get in touch with us through our Jitouk UK website, or I have dropped my number on the chat. You can contact me over WhatsApp, and we'll ensure that it has been addressed as soon as possible. We look forward to all of you becoming the members. Together we can.
Thank you, Rajesh. It is important that we give membership. That is, a sponsorship and membership helps us to do these things. And some events will be exclusively for members only. For example, the members meet. So if you can, that would be really fantastic. But I just wanted to wrap up saying, first of all, big thank you to Vimal for very, very inspirational. You know, it's amazing your knowledge level from global to knowing ground level stuff, from starting as a youth to succession planning. So the depth and breadth is just fantastic. Thank you so much. And I am absolutely no doubt with your support, we will try and do something more over the coming months. And also thank you to everyone who's participated here. Without them, it's absolutely no point in doing anything, obviously. And I would also like to thank Navnath and Oshwal. They've not only collaborated, but actually really supported all the way through to shape it a bit as well. And sincere thanks for that. And lastly, the main thing is the board members and the trustees for the organization. They do put a lot of time and effort into this. And everyone, many of here are community workers. When you do this seva, there's a lot of learning, a lot of joy, but at the same time, a lot of effort. And Nemish, thank you for leading this particular event. We have different people leading different webinars, and thank you for leading this one. So thanks everyone, and We'll see you soon.